Welcome, everybody, to Sunday morning here at Club Fantasy, and this is the Dynasty After Party. I'm your host today, Joshua Hudson. With me, as always, Mr. Joel Wirth, and we are going to be doing a bit of a price check here when it comes to Dynasty. We've got a three-part series, and today we're going to be covering quarterbacks. These are going to be quarterbacks that you should be looking to acquire heading into your 2024 Dynasty seasons that you can probably get pretty cheap. And we are going to explain why. So stay tuned. Welcome, everybody, to Sunday morning at the Dynasty After Party here at Club Fantasy. I am Joshua Hudson. With me, Mr. Joel Wirth. Joel, how are we doing this morning, buddy?
Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, good. It's good Sunday morning. What are we, like 3 weeks out from Sunday football?
3 weeks out.
It's getting there.
Can't wait. It's exciting. I'm already seeing people across Twitter and social media overreacting to like one throw from a quarterback, and they're like,
yeah,
this confirms all my priors. And I'm like,
exactly.
Okay, we've reached that season now. All right, cool, awesome. This is going to be fun.
I think I have an idea of which throw you're talking about, and I think we'll probably talk about that later.
As mentioned in the intro, we're going to be talking quarterbacks. So this three-part series is players you should be trading for. We're going to cover quarterbacks this week. We'll touch on running backs, and then we're going to lump the wide receivers and tight ends together as a pass catchers show. But before we get into all the goodies, we've got some stuff to talk about here at Club Fantasy, right? So as most people know that are following us, this is our Women of Fantasy Football Month. Kelly and Faith, we'll be heading into week 3 on Wednesday. So they're hosting the WAF podcast. We've already had interviews with Gabby Gowdy from FanDuel. Last week we had Renee from right here at Club Fantasy and WAF, and she also started up on the Field FF for female creators in the fantasy football space, as well as, and I know I'm blanking on the first guest that we had, Drew Jones from Galvanize. That's what it was. So this week, Faith and Kelly are going to be talking with our own Stacey Perez, who also contributes over at Fantasy and Frames, as well as Stephanie Stradley, who is the Houston Texans beat reporter for the Houston Chronicle. She also happens to be a huge proponent of fantasy football, so it's going to be a really good conversation to chat with her. And as part of this, we have our weekly raffles that we do to raise money for our WAF Galvanized Scholarship Fund. All of this goes to support women that are wanting to attend the boot camps and seminars that Galvanize puts on. In a nutshell, Galvanize was set up to provide women in sports media the tools that someone like Laura Oakman, who founded it, NFL and Fox Sports reporter, the tools that she didn't have when she was breaking into the industry. So last year we were able to, or this summer really, based on what we were able to raise last year, we were able to send 4 different women to these camps. So we're hoping to hopefully potentially add a 5th this year, maybe more, who knows? But through 2 weeks, we've raised over $1,400. We're off to a really good start this week. And this week we're raffling off a signed Amon-Ra St. Brown Lions jersey, as well as a signed Sam Laporta Lions jersey. So prior to Detroit week here at Club Fantasy and Women of Fantasy Football. So head over to womenoffantasyfootball.com and you can purchase your raffle tickets. They're $5 each, no limit on how many you can buy. We've seen people drop over $100 on tickets and win, over $100 on tickets and not win. I've seen people drop literally $5 for a ticket and win. It's all chance, but it all goes towards a great cause. So like I said, head over to womenoffantasyfootball.com and you can check out those raffles. As part of all this great stuff that we're doing with Women of Fantasy Football, we've developed a partnership with Trophy Smack. So head over to trophysmack.com/WAF. That's WOFF. It's going to take you right to the Trophy Smack landing page. Anything you purchase from Trophy Smack through that link during the month of August, any of those commissions that we earn are going to go directly into that scholarship fund. So trophies, championship belts, championship rings to display, any wall smack, anything else that you can think of, losers trophies and merchandise, beautiful belt like what Joel is sporting right there. All of that you can purchase at Trophy Smack, fully customizable to fit within the constraints of your league and all of that good jazz. All goes towards helping a great cause, and obviously helps us and women in fantasy football sort of build the foundation and get off the ground. That's a lot. That's a lot, Joel.
It is. But all great stuff.
Not even done yet, because Club Fantasy has had the great opportunity to partner with Dynasty Nerds to help you further your chances at winning those Dynasty championships. So let's help you stack some championships. Head over to dynastynerds.com. Use promo code Club Fantasy and save yourself 15% off of any one of their memberships. They have their Nerd Score, their All 22 Film Room, Dynasty Calculator. They have a whole Dynasty GM where you can input all of your leagues, and it'll help you kind of like break down like the best trades to kind of chase, and you know, all the tools there are just absolutely fantastic. We've had a lot of great responses to those that have used our promo code and got everything set up with them. So as I mentioned, head over to dynastynerds.com, promo code Club Fantasy, save yourself 15%. I'm actually going to go through and set up our lovely little banner here for Dynasty Nerds, so you guys can see that throughout the whole show. So now that we've got through the paying your bills section of Dynasty App, let's get into talking trades. So we're going to, again, talk quarterbacks that we want to target heading into Dynasty. Last night, we dropped on our website Joel's article centered around this, and he has quite a few quarterbacks in mind. And I'm not going to lie, Joel, when I see some of these names, I want to have you drug tested.
It's all good.
Because there's just no way in hell I'm targeting some of these people. But I like the reasonings behind a lot of these, because at the end of the day, when we're trying to win in Dynasty, we're trying to win cheap, right? Because we don't have to give up a lot of future assets, which prevents us from continuing to compete, but can then help us compete here in the now, right? So I want to first start with, talk to us about kind of your inspiration behind this series, and we'll get into the specifics of who you're targeting.
Yeah, so the idea behind this was, like, there's nothing worse in fantasy than, you know, having a take on a player and then being right, but not doing anything about it, right? It's, you know, it's like, I like this guy, I think he's going to go off, but I'm not sure I trust it. And then you end up, you don't do anything about it. You don't make trades for the player. You don't draft the player. You don't invest heavily enough. And then that player goes off. And it's like, I was right. Why didn't I listen to myself? So, like, these are the players that I like, that are, I think I can get, like, yeah, obviously I like Jalen Hurts. I like Josh Allen. I like Kyler Murray.
We all do.
I like all these guys, but I'm not getting these guys at, you know, below fair market value, right? I'm not getting a bargain on any of these guys. I'm paying full price. So these are the guys that I think I can go after and get at a reasonable price that doesn't, like you said, doesn't affect my ability to compete either this year or next year. And I think they're guys that just in general, the market is underrating.
All right. So let's start with your first guy here, because I think there's a reason the market's out on him, truthfully. But, okay, you know, let's dive into Derek Carr. The Saints, they're kind of a shit show. Dennis Allen and his press conferences, my God. If like, how seriously, how does he get people to play for him? I truly do not get it. He's not one with words. I will tell you that much. Derek Carr was brought over last year, signed a really strange 4-year contract that, man, the Saints really just love investing in mediocrity. Ends up getting hurt last year. They spent a 5th-round pick on Spencer Rattler. Again, it's a 5th-round pick. No real legitimate threat to Derek Carr, right? Well, there's plenty of people that actually believe so, and it's not necessarily because they love Spencer Rattler. It's just because of what they think about Derek Carr. So before we bring up these trades that you have written about in this article, Joel, let's talk your take on Derek Carr, where he is in his career, what you think he offers and brings to the table, what kind of reasonable outcome you can see for 2024.
Yeah, so I think the Saints team is just, and especially the offense, is just being really considerably underrated by the market in general, by fantasy fans, by football fans in general. I mean, getting to the Dennis Allen thing, yeah, his press conferences look stupid, but remember Nick Sirianni had the same thing happen at his introductory press conference. That turned out okay.
Introductory press conference. Dennis Allen has not only been a head coach in this league previously, this is now his second time and in his third season. There's a difference.
Okay. Right, fair. But we saw the same kind of thing with Jonathan Gannon last year. Remember when he had that speech in front of the team?
Introductory.
Everybody looked completely bored. So I'm just not going to put too much into these. Like, I don't think Dennis Allen's a great coach by any stretch of the imagination. I think he's probably a bottom half coach, but probably a bottom third coach, to be honest. But like, he's not running the offense. And I think there's significant upside to this offense because of the addition by subtraction of Pete Carmichael just being kind of institutional trash and just weighing that offense down, replacing him with a capable offensive coordinator in Clint Kubiak, even though doesn't have a ton of experience calling plays. He's a Shanahan guy. He's been quarterback coach, kind of play caller at the highest level. He was came up under the Shanahan tree, under his dad, exactly. Yeah. So he was a QB coach for the Vikings a couple of years ago. So he's capable, right? He's not a zero like Carmichael was. And it's Derek Carr's second year in the offense, not in the offense, but with the team. So he's going to have some additional familiarity. And Carr, he wasn't bad last year, right? He had 25 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, almost 3,900 yards in a year where he got seriously injured in week 3 against the Packers, had to leave the game at the end of the third quarter, I think it was. Legitimately should not have played that first week back, and probably the second week back either. He was obviously limited because of that shoulder injury. So and then he left the game against the Vikings as well early because I think he had a concussion or something like that. So you consider the time he missed or was limited. That's not a bad stat line for a guy who's nobody's expecting to be a QB1. If he can just be QB 15 to 20 and be a number 2 quarterback in Superflex, that's perfectly acceptable. I mean, those are 25 touchdowns is a perfectly acceptable number for your QB2 in Superflex. So just the guy that I think everyone lists a shit on, and there's legitimate reasons to shit on Derek Carr, but he's also I don't think he's ever going to win a Super Bowl, but he's perfectly fine for fantasy.
So I'm looking at his stat lines, his box scores, we'll box score scout a little bit. He had 4 games last year with 0 touchdowns. 3 of his last 4 games, he had 3 or more touchdowns. He did not have a single game before week 15 where he had more than 2 touchdowns. And all of his zeros came before then. I feel like his stat lines are bloated based on those final 4 weeks. He beat the Giants, lost to the Rams, beat the Bucks, and smoked Atlanta.
I think he was second in the league in 300-yard passing games as well.
There's no way. He did have 6 of them, so yeah. I mean, but again, all but one of those came early in the season, so it's 300 yards and 1 touchdown. That's not great.
He's got that baseline. Now you add in a better offensive coordinator, better play caller, a healthy Chris Olave, hopefully. I just think that what's their running game? Kendra Miller, who can't get out of the doghouse, a washed-up Jamal Williams.
Hill. Learn it. Remember it, okay?
You want to know why he had all those 300-yard 1 touchdown games? Taysom fucking Hill.
Yeah, right.
Now, I know he's not going anywhere, but he's also 33. He missed the last 4 games of the year last year. So it is what it is.
Okay. Well, I'm not necessarily a hater. I'm more so playing devil's advocate here. But I do like Derek Carr is the perpetual QB2. He's had one career year where he's finished as a top 12 quarterback. Every other year, it's QB 13 to 20. Like, that's exactly what he is. So I'm not disputing your logic here because you basically said he's a solid QB2, and I agree. So let's talk trades now. These are, I know you had some in this article that were like offered trades and some that were accepted trades or consummated trades. As you were.
Consummated.
So I'll let you kind of discuss which one was which, but we'll start with this first one here. Derek Carr for a 20-25 second. I don't know the range of likelihood that this is a early, mid, or late, but I think anytime you can get a starting quarterback for less than a first-round pick in a Superflex league, I think that's a perfect trade, in all opinion, in all honesty.
Yep. And I think you just nailed it, right? Derek Carr is going to consistently be between QB 13 and 20, just because he doesn't have the upside to be a QB1. And I in no way expect him to be a QB1, right? I do not. I don't expect him to have like Kirk Cousins' season like last year when he was QB5 before he got hurt. I don't expect that in any way. But that doesn't mean he can't be a perfectly serviceable QB2. And like you said, if you can get a starting quarterback for anything less than a first, you probably have to do it. So in this league, somebody put on their trade block, said Derek Carr for a 25 or for any second. Done. Sent the offer immediately, got accepted, done. I don't care where that second is. It's mine, so I know where it's going to be. It's probably late. It's probably late to mid. It's a pretty good team. But and in this league, I don't even need Derek Carr, right? I think. Oh no, this one I did need him. The other one I didn't. But yeah, so this one this was a quarterback light team. So yeah, I'm just playing. I'm paying a second for Derek Carr. But I'm paying a second for any starting quarterback in a Superflex.
100%. Yeah, the way that Superflex leagues just inflate the value of quarterbacks, like I don't know very many leagues where you can get a starting quarterback for a second. So kudos to you. I like it. All right, second trade here. Kind of similar, really. Yeah. Derek Carr for the 210 and 310 this year and a 2025 third. 12 teams, start 10, Superflex. I mean, same concept here, right? Like you're getting him for a second.
Yeah, exactly.
Thirds really don't matter. So
yeah, I don't care about the 310. I don't care about a 25 third. So yeah, this is really and 210. You know, I don't.
I mean, that's a borderline third round pick.
Better or worse than an indeterminate second. So yeah, again, a little extra draft capital, but nothing that I think is going to sway anything. So yeah, this is essentially Carr for 3 seconds or 3/3, excuse me, or 2 late seconds. I'm paying that for a starting quarterback in a Superflex.
So I want to throw a hypothetical out for you. Let's say the Saints get off to a horrid start, like 2-6. Dennis Allen probably gets fired, right? At that point, they probably don't need to see any more from Derek Carr. They want to see, can Spencer Rattler be the guy? Does this package pay for itself through 8 games? Just curious.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So a couple of things.
Honestly, I think anytime you're making trades for somebody that has an opportunity to get benched like that, those types of things sit in the back of your mind, right? Like, what's the acceptable value if he only plays 8 games or 10 games or 12 games, right? It's the same thing with Russell Wilson. We all expect him to start.
Or Justin Fields on the back.
Justin Fields. Yeah. Yep. So because I have a Superflex league where I have Russ as like my third quarterback, but because of the uncertainty with him, that's what forced me to swing for the fences to go get a QB2 because I have Mahomes as my QB1. And I gave up quite a bit. Like I basically turned that team into a 0 RB hopeful. So
nice.
You better be right, Joel.
Respect.
Because I didn't feel comfortable with Russ going as a QB2 because of the same situation, right? He could put up some decent numbers in Arthur Smith's offense, but I'm not 100% sold on it. And ain't nobody in their right mind offering me any trades for him. So I'm like, well, I I can't keep shouldering Patrick Mahomes with all this weight. I got to give him some support here. So,
yeah, the other thing about Carr in specific is they've still got a huge dead cap hit on him next year. So I fully expect him to be their quarterback for 2 more years. I did not like Spencer Rattler as a prospect
teams
at all.
have a lot of dead money on quarterbacks and just be like, look, we gotta eat it at this point.
Sure, but if they also have an insanely easy schedule and they play in the weakest division in the league by far going into the season, so I don't expect them to get off to a terrible start like that. That's going to necessitate them just starting to rebuild. Their defense is old, but it's still they've still got good players on the defense. It's a terrible division. I mean, Atlanta's making some improvements on defense. They're still a terrible defensive team, as good as they'll be offense. And it's a team or a division that doesn't have any good defenses, right? They could play shootouts all year long in that.
Yeah, Tampa's kind of hit or miss. Like they can look like a really good defense on occasion.
They can.
I do respect Todd Bowles as a coordinator.
Carolina's terrible.
Progress. Yeah, they're
Atlanta signed Judon, which helps, but they're still a bad defense.
I mean, they made some defensive improvements last year. They just can't get after the quarterback, so they need Judon, right? Yeah. And I think that back end got a hell of a lot better now that you've got Simmons and Bates back there. I know they're past their prime, but they're still quality safeties.
I still think it's one of the worst defensive divisions in the league.
Cumulatively, yes, I would agree with that.
So, I don't think there's a realistic scenario where they just get out to an absolutely terrible start. They're too competent to be that bad. Even though Dennis Allen is not.
They're the definition of mediocrity. I'll bring up Gator's comment here. Carr is that guy in a Superflex league you have for a bye week as your QB3.
And that's exactly what I'm paying for. If I'm sending a second, that's exactly what I'm paying for.
All right, that's fair. All right, I want to bring up, before we transition in the next topics here, I want to bring up some of these questions from the chat here. Fantasy roll. So, Joel, I know you do IDP, so I think you can actively answer this question. What's the best strategy in an offensive IDP startup draft? And I think really, to me, without knowing any more context than this, I think a lot of this will depend on how many IDP spots do you have? Yep. Is it a full IDP or is it just like 3 or 4 spots? That would be
you nailed it. If it's a full 11 players, then you want to get fairly aggressive on your IDPs because there's a big gap between the top and the bottom. If it's one of these where we just want to dip our toes into IDP and we're going to start 1 player, 3 players, something like that, then honestly, I don't care about the IDPs because I can pick up good players off of waivers. So I'm going to be very heavily invested in the offensive side. And the scoring matters too, right? You've got to pay attention to the scoring. Is it tackle heavy? Is it big play, sack, interception heavy? That's got to be factored in as well.
I think that's a fair assessment. All right. Good buddy Joe here. In a Dynasty Superflex startup, he's got the 2nd pick, 12-team draft. Any thoughts from the 1-2 leaning quarterback or Brees?
I am always taking quarterback at Superflex early, especially very early. I mean, you're giving up too much value if you don't take someone like Hurts or Allen.
Yeah,
whoever's
I agree. That's kind of where I'm at on that. I mean, Brees is, first off, I wouldn't.
You might be able to get Brees on the way back.
I was going to say, you can probably get him at the back end. I don't know if this is a 3rd-round reversal or not, but you could likely get Brees or even another quality running back if that's the route you want to go. You could get them at the 211. Anytime it's Superflex, especially in a 12-team league, you start with that quarterback. So for me, it's Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts. Those are my top 2 in Dynasty. So,
I mean, honestly, this morning I woke up to an offer of Jalen Hurts for essentially 4 firsts, which is and going out. So, I mean, that's the kind of value that you're passing up if you don't take Hurts or Allen at the top of the
correct, because nobody's offering that for Brees Hall in a Superflex startup.
Exactly, they just retain so much value. So it's you have to go that way. Once you get to the bottom of the 1st, then you can kind of talk whether you want to take, Jefferson, Chase, something like that. But early in the 1st, I'm 100% taking a quarterback.
All right. Next guy on the docket here, Mr. Daniel Jones. Now, talking about overreacting to preseason games, Daniel Jones still looks slow. He's not processing very well. The line looked a little better. Heavily targeting Malik Neighbors, which, we all knew was going to be the case. But I also think, too, that when we get into season, that may not be the case. I think they're just trying to work through some things personally because they know he's not going to play a full game. So they just want to get him as much work as possible. So let's start with opinions on Daniel Jones.
So we talked earlier about the overreacting to one play from preseason. I think this was the play you were probably talking about, the terrible interception he threw from the end zone. And if you look at
I
wasn't
wasn't even talking about that one.
Oh, okay.
I mean, he also had the one where he underthrew Jalen Hyatt, and I think it was Stingley that intercepted it.
I didn't even see that one, to be honest.
Yeah, it was supposed to be like a back shoulder, and he threw it on the front shoulder, and Stingley was just like, hey, thanks. Christmas came early. Like, it was a whole thing. So.
Yeah, on the play that I saw, that he threw a pick six from his own end zone while he was about to get tackled.
Yeah, I saw that one too.
He was, if you watch the play, he was
mid-season form, baby.
Like, he was looking for Neighbors early, but Neighbors obviously ran the wrong route, or they were not on the same page, because when he was looking to throw the ball to Neighbors was like running into a defender. So I don't know what the hell he was doing. So obviously that's a miscommunication. This is why you play preseason games. Yep. You want to work out these miscommunications. You want to work out the kinks. Daniel, this was also his first game action since the ACL last year. So yeah, I'm not going to overreact to a preseason game in any way. The important thing I think you brought up is their offensive line is going to be better. It's not going to be as disastrous.
They still have Evan Neal on that offensive line.
Sure. But the best way to go from garbage to mediocre is just to bring in competent starters, which they did. John Runyon had to play for the Packers last year, was splitting time at the end of the year. He's nobody's idea of a world beater, but he's a perfectly cromulent starter. Yeah, he's a perfectly average starter. So, they made multiple upgrades to their offensive line. We shouldn't have, you're not going to have the excuse of, it's a disaster, he didn't have a chance. So you're going to know if Daniel Jones is good or not. Now, there is some risk here with Jones that I don't think exists with Carr, and that, yeah, he legitimately could get benched. If things go terribly wrong, he does have the injury offset in his contract, or injury guarantee in his contract. So you may see that, Derek Carr from 2 years ago, Russell Wilson from last year, these guys getting benched late in the season when they fall completely out of the playoffs. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Giants are going to be good enough that they're at least competitive, and I don't see anyone kind of running away with that division. No offense to your Eagles, but I think Dallas is going to be bad. I think the Giants could legitimately be better than Dallas. So, yeah, I don't think they're going to be eager to give up on a season in any way. And again, nobody wants Daniel Jones. Nobody cares about him. So nobody's relying on him to be a starter. So if you need, again, this is where if you need a bench spot, if you need a kind of desperation QB2 in Superflex, he's a perfectly, available guy that you can go after and just, have to pay absolutely nothing for. But, he's got Malik Neighbors, so he's got an elite receiver for the first time. Dable's taking over the play calling. It's just the seeds are there for this to be, a non-terrible offense. So, again, yeah, I don't expect him to be a QB1 in any way, but I expect him to be a perfectly serviceable QB2.
And there is the rushing upside that comes with it, right?
Sure.
So
as long as he doesn't trip over the 30-yard line.
Let's be honest, we all know that's coming. All right, so I want to bring up this trade that you wrote about because I think this is fairly interesting. Daniel Jones and Wan'Dale Robinson for Will Levis, 12-team. It's 2 quarterbacks, so not super flex, 2 quarterbacks, right. Start 11. So walk us through your process here because I'm very much on Will Levis. I think he has every opportunity in front of him to be not just like Daniel Jones level good, but be like bottom QB1 level good. And that's something that I don't think Daniel Jones has.
That's fair, but I also think he has the exact same risk of not being a starter next year that Daniel Jones has. Because if he does not produce this year, they're not going to hesitate to go out and get something else. Like they did not spend a high first on Will Levis. He was a second round pick. He was a high second, but he was a second round pick. So they don't have a massive like first round investment in him that they feel like they need to pay off and are going to give him multiple opportunities. So yes, I think there's opportunity for him to be good, to be, a bottom tier QB1. If you expect him to be like the guaranteed starter next year, I think you're over any more than Daniel Jones is. I think you're overthinking it because I don't think that guarantee exists, because if he does not play well, he's not going to be the starter. They're going to draft somebody else. So 2 QB does kind of, and it's also start 11, right? So the extra asset matters here. I mentioned the article. I do not care about stacking in Dynasty in any way whatsoever, but I will leverage it in trade negotiations. Like I'll use it against other managers and say, "Oh, do you want the stack? Are you interested in the stack?" Or I may kind of play coy about how I'm interested in a stack when I'm really interested in getting somebody else. But yeah, I think this is I think in a 2 QB league where this is my third QB, I'm fine kind of going from Levis to Jones and getting an extra asset, especially in a start 11 where that extra asset could be a starter.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't disagree with what you're saying about Levis. Obviously, being a second round pick, the team isn't tied to him. They've done everything possible to get him weapons, a solid tandem at running back, 2 really, really good wide receivers. Tyler Boyd's been a reliable slot. You still have the idea of a good wide receiver in former first round pick Treylon Burks. You have quality tight ends, and they've spent the last 2 drafts building that offensive line, getting Skoronski and Latham there. So I agree. Everything is there. You follow college a lot more than I do. What quarterback really next year is staring in the face saying, all right, if we suck, this is our first round guy? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's totally fair.
And I know things can change. I 100% get that. A lot of people, like, I feel like you could ask 5 different people and 5 different people will have a different QB1 in this 2025 class.
100%.
Right.
Yep.
So that alone should tell you maybe we need to just give Daniel or Will Levis another year. Right. Because being a second round pick, I don't think you can realistically say, all right, after 16 starts, we know that we got our guy. Right. So again, just my opinion. And I do think that this team is in transition because this defense, it needs some work, right? Vrabel was really in my opinion, the mastermind that kept that defense going because they didn't have a ton of talent on that defense.
100%. Yep.
So now they're really going to be like, all right, can we keep it under 20 points or did we build this offense to get in, 35, 32 shutouts or shootouts, right?
Right.
So and that's where I think that Will Levis can play for this offense because he's got a big arm and he can throw the football. He has some athletic ability, even though I don't think that, he has that sort of like rushing floor that Daniel Jones has. But if you put the upside of what each can do with their arm against each other, it's Will Levis by 1.5 miles, in my opinion.
Agreed.
So,
just a couple things. One, we don't know if Brian Callahan is any good as a head coach.
I also agree.
So that there's that, and like he was not part of the administration that drafted Will Levis. So
correct.
If things go bad, like he can use Levis as a scapegoat. Like I agree, there's no surefire QB in this draft. You're going to be taking a chance, but like Callahan could just say, okay, I wanted to make this work, and the quarterback just couldn't carry the load. Levis was the worst quarterback in the league under pressure last year. Now they've made upgrades to the line. They were on Cushenberry. Like you said, they've upgraded the line through draft. So I expect it to be better. I would
be more worried by that stat if he was a 3rd or 4th or 5th year quarterback.
Agreed.
He was a rookie. Agreed. Fully expect rookies to be bottom 5 in that stat.
But if he's not, then that's the case where you just say, this guy can't handle it at this level, so let's move on and find someone who can.
No, 100% fair. 100% fair. And I do agree with what you're saying because of the depth of the starting squads, getting that extra asset in Wan'Dale Robinson, even though it is Wan'Dale Robinson, it helps.
Yep.
All right. Next up, let's talk about the guy that just got injured and lost himself to a season. J.J. McCarthy. Torn meniscus, full repair, missing the year. All hail Sam Darnold. God, that sucks. That really sucks. I'm not going to lie. Justin Jefferson was just throwing shit across the locker room. Not going to lie. So let's talk J.J. McCarthy here, because you had some people that, I mean, we had Chrissy Freud on, a known QB expert, during our Stars of Tomorrow series, and she had J.J. McCarthy as her QB1. Now, granted, we're not ranking for fantasy, and that's fine. But she loves McCarthy, loves the tools, loves the intangibles. I think a lot of people, when he landed in Minnesota, started to really move him up their ranks. I felt like the consensus, top 3 was Caleb, was Jaden Daniels and Drake May, right? I saw people that were easily sliding McCarthy above Drake May because they didn't like the New England situation. I saw people that were sliding him even higher than that, above, Jaden Daniels and maybe even Caleb Williams in some instances, right? Not smart in my opinion, but hey, we all have our quirks. But Kevin O'Connell, has proven to be a pretty good coach, especially on offense, and has worked pretty well with quarterbacks, right? I mean, they kept throwing the football with, XFL guys last year. So what should we have expected from McCarthy that gets you excited about 2025 and beyond?
Yeah, so I'll say the thing about McCarthy is, like, everyone else in this list is like quarterbacks that I expect to outperform what the market expects. McCarthy obviously isn't, but he's a guy I want to go get before, their current manager realizes what they don't have, or that they might be able to replace him. So it's an opportunity to kind of potentially take advantage of a perceived vulnerability on their part. So McCarthy, again, what I care about most with McCarthy is, and I had my qualms with him as a prospect, he's going to a Kevin O'Connell offense. And as much as I hate that Kevin O'Connell is a really good coach, he is a really good coach. He's a really good play caller. He's going to have elite weapons. He's going to have Justin Jefferson. He's going to have Jordan Addison. He's going to have a full strength TJ Hawkinson. He's going to be the quarterback of and this administration, they absolutely did draft him. And we heard all throughout the process that Minnesota loved McCarthy. So there's a massive investment there. He did have an encouraging first preseason start, even though, there's some question about him at practice, among the practice reports, let's say, but had a pretty good first preseason performance and then got hurt. So, yeah, I think the upside that he presented as a prospect is still there. Everything I liked about him before is still, like, this is not a career threatening. This is not ACL or Achilles or something like that could potentially derail him. It's a meniscus. It's a simple, obviously it takes him out for the season, but it's a simple surgery. It's a simple repair, and he should be back to 100% next year, from the word go. So, yeah, I just don't think it just doesn't change his prospect profile. It just pushes it back a year.
So let me ask you this then, because I think the savvy dynasty manager that is holding McCarthy isn't overreacting to this, right? They're saying, all right, cool, I got a stash, whatever, cool. So how are you then structuring trades with that in mind? Because most people aren't going to give you much of a discount on McCarthy.
I think you're right that the savvy manager is not, but the impatient ones maybe. And there are impatient ones out there, and there are ones who, and we'll talk about some trades, who are very nervous about this, and we're relying on a quarterback like McCarthy to be their Superflex QB. Like, nobody's expecting him to be a QB1 or like a one quarterback starter. But in Superflex, you may have been in a position where you were relying on him as your second starter, and now you're kind of desperate if you're a contending team. Like, no non-contender is selling him. Like,
agreed.
That's easy. But I think there are contending teams out there who thought they're going to have to rely on him, and that's why I want to strike now, before they realize, maybe I'll be all right. Maybe I have a Derek Carr and I'm okay after all. So now is when I want to kind of, when that fear, uncertainty, and doubt is at its highest, this is when I want to go make those deals.
All right. And I think this trade right here kind of speaks to that, right? So JJ McCarthy for Kirk Cousins and Brissett. You get 2 quarterbacks here. One really should be the starter for at least this year. The other, likely to get benched, but who knows? I mean, there are a lot of people in New England that are high on Brissett. So it's 12-team Superflex, start 10. Talk us through this.
Yeah, so a couple of unique things about this one. The team I got McCarthy from had legitimately their only 2 quarterbacks were McCarthy and Drake May. So obviously this deal works for them because they get if May doesn't start right away, they get Brissett as a starter. And it's a legitimate contending team. So they get Cousins as a starter, and they get Brissett to kind of bridge the gap until May starts. I have Hurts and Kyler in this league and drafted Jaden Daniels. So Cousins was as good as he may be. He was never starting for me. So so I gave up an asset that was literally never going to hit my lineup and get just the kind of more valuable long-term asset in McCarthy.
Yeah, this is your strategy in this league. Apparently, was right out of the South Harmon, Iowa Mike School of hoarding quarterbacks. Our man would have been proud, Joel. Yeah. Yeah, I think I would have zero issue making this trade to get JJ McCarthy, in all honesty, especially given the situation that you have. If Cousins was my QB2, I would definitely think twice about it. But
I would have to think harder. Yep.
Something like this obviously is very, contingent on roster construction. So the next trade I do find really interesting. I believe this is one of your offered trades, but correct me if I'm wrong.
No, this one happened. This is real.
Okay. JJ McCarthy in a 2025 second for DJ Moore and J.K. Dobbins. 12-team Superflex, start 10. Similar settings. The interesting deal. All right, walk us through this. Which side were you on here?
So this team, I got McCarthy, and this team is a team that I've been just kind of floating around with a really mid team, and I just need to pull the trigger on a rebuild. So I'm fine with giving up DJ Moore to get a quarterback. I'm weak at quarterback, and I don't have enough to win in this league. It's okay. Best case, I'm a back end playoff team. So I just need to pull the plug and rebuild. So I get DJ Moore's points off my team, get myself potentially better draft position next year. I don't care about J.K. Dobbins.
He's a throw-in at that point.
Exactly. And so I get a second. I get the more valuable positional asset in McCarthy over DJ Moore. And DJ Moore is a very valuable asset. Don't get me wrong, but I'm getting a quarterback instead of a receiver. So this is a deal I'm going to make. If I was a contender, there's no way I make this deal. Because
I agree.
I need to pull the plug and start my rebuild. It's a deal I'm okay making.
Yeah, that's why I said I think it's an interesting deal because, at the end of the day, to me, it really, how do you value JJ McCarthy, right? Because DJ Moore, I think before they traded for Keenan Allen, before they drafted Rome Odunze, there was talk that top 10 dynasty wide receiver, right? I think that value is definitely taking a hit. I think you can still make the argument that he's a top 15 dynasty wide receiver. So at that point, it becomes, how are you valuing JJ McCarthy? Because in a super flex, to move DJ Moore, you got to have McCarthy probably as a top 12 QB in your mind, right? Top 12, maybe top 15?
Yeah, for sure. He's got to be definitely startable.
I was going to say, and then to me, throwing on a second, it doesn't really close that gap. But like you said, you're trying to get the points off your team. If all things being equal, you should be getting at least a first in return for DJ Moore, in my opinion. McCarthy in a first. That would be my thought process.
Yeah,
if the teams are more evenly matched, I would say.
Yes. If I wasn't willing to do a rebuild, then for sure. But again, and DJ Moore is getting to that age where people are going to start. What was he, 27?
They're going to start doubting him. Yeah.
Yeah. By the time this team
that's the thing. He just signed a contract extension. He's not going anywhere.
Agreed. But by the time this team is ready to compete, he's probably not. He doesn't have the dynasty value anymore. He's probably just a guy who's only going to be on there for points, which is fine. but he becomes like a Deebo Samuel, like he's an unmovable asset. And, if I need to move the contention window out, then, he's kind of a guy who's just going to sit on my roster and not really do anything for me.
Yeah. I think we've reached Amari Cooper territory with DJ Moore because he came into the league younger, right? He's been in the league a while, consistently puts up good stats, yet people still don't like him because he's not the new hotness. Well, they're lost. That's the way I look at it. All right. Before we get into the next one, we had a couple questions here from the chat. So I want to bring up one of our Twitch questions. 10-man league. He actually picked 9. He clarified. Guessing this is redraft, but let's answer anyway. So he ended up with CJ Stroud, James Cook, John Robinson, Mike Evans, AJ Brown, Jaden Reed, Rashee Rice, Browns defense, Cowboys kicker. Quote, did I cook or no? So he also added Nick Chubb as well as Mike Williams as bench stashes. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I like the early parts of this team.
Yep.
But I'm also guessing you probably need to start a tight end, and I don't see one there.
Yeah, I think if you started Bijan, AJ Brown, Mike Evans, even in a 10-team league, that's really good. That's a very good start. I have my issues with James Cook, but he's still, perfectly serviceable starter as an RB2. Stroud is obviously a very good starting quarterback. And then, Jaden Reed, Rashee Rice, guys who I think are going to have very high spike games and probably some lows, but definitely starters in a QB 10, or a 10-team league. I think you did just fine.
They do add in. They got Trey McBride. So you cooked, homie. You cooked.
You cooked for sure.
I like it.
So if he was picking from the 9 and got Bijan, that's
wild.
That's pretty insane.
I like that. Let's get you over to Trophy Smack and pre-order that championship ring, buddy, because TrophySmack.com/WAFF. WOFF. Get on it, homie. All right. Next one here from the chat. In a startup right now, team is Caleb, Kyler, Rome Odunze, Trey McBride, Josh Jacobs, T. Higgins, Lad McConkey. Full PPR, but it's a 1.75 tight end premium. It's also Superflex, start 11. Kind of at the point in the draft. Would you be targeting a tight end like Evan Ingram or TJ Hawkinson, or keep building out the skill positions in Jaden Reed, Zamir White?
At a 175, I'm especially to start 11, where it's much more realistic to flex a tight end. I'm definitely going Hawkinson or Ingram here. If you really want to compete this year, take Ingram. If you want to go for the higher value asset going into next year, that's Hawkinson. But I would easily take either one of those two ahead of Reed or Zamir White in a 175.
Yeah, I agree. I think from a dynasty perspective, I'm leaning Hawkinson over Ingram. No shade on Ingram. I think everybody knows how much I love him and love the reception upside, which, again, I think plays very well into the tight end premium asset. But TJ Hawkinson's no slouch. He gets a lot of targets and a lot of catches as well. The thing that hurts him this year, obviously the injury coming back from a late season ACL last year. I think I would lean Hawkinson personally and take the higher upside for next year. But I think all these guys are really good options. I mean, I love Jaden Reed, Zamir White. I'm fine waiting on just because, there's so much more uncertainty with him than everybody else. But, I think if you have a preference between Ingram and Hawkinson, that's where I would go. Personally, I would lean Hawkinson.
So I would look at this team and say, I've got Jacobs, I've got Kyler, I've got McBride, Higgins. This is a team that's ready to win now. If you expect Odunze to be an impact player this year, which I certainly do, I would tend to lean Ingram because I think I can win this year. And Ingram is more valuable in the higher premium because he's not a touchdown scorer, but he's a big reception guy. So this is a format where he's at his most valuable. So as much as in a vacuum would take Hockenson over Ingram. On this team that I think is capable of winning this year, I would take Ingram. But yeah, it's definitely one of those two. Whichever
See,
way.
I would disagree that they're ready to win now because I don't see a bona fide wide receiver 1 right here. And I don't think you're going to win in Dynasty without a bona fide wide receiver 1.
That's
you don't have an AJ Brown, you don't have a Jefferson or a Chase.
In a 175, I think McBride is more valuable than all but like a handful of the top wide receiver ones.
I mean, that's fair. I also think that you're higher on Odunze this year than I am.
I am probably, definitely.
The only way that I see him being impactful is if Keenan Allen or DJ Moore miss extended time, because otherwise you're looking at JSN 2.0 for 2024. Because that's how Shane Waldron runs his offense. That's
a perfectly valid take, but I kind of disagree with it because I think Odunze is just the best player in that room. So. I think he's going to have
that could very well be the case. I agree
with Caleb. Yep.
Yeah. Love the quarterbacks, though. I will say that. I think
for sure.
Fantastic quarterback room.
That's a very good start.
But yeah. All right. Let's next trade target. One of our thumbnail guys, Trevor Lawrence. A lot of opinions on him. Did recently just sign a contract extension, so there's some level of security there heading into 2024 and beyond. But I just kind of feel like that given the expectations heaped on him coming out as the number 1 overall pick a few years back, kind of a bit disappointing. And I know that offense there in Jacksonville has definitely been up and down. Doug Peterson really hasn't been able to replicate what he was able to do in Philly, leading them to a Super Bowl. They've had a lot of offensive line issues, consistency issues at wide receiver, and completely turned over that pass catching room. However, bringing in Christian Kirk has been great. They extended Evan Ingram as well, so they've got 2 solidified weapons there. Now you're bringing in new weapons, which to me feels kind of like the same weapon in Gabe Davis as well as Brian Thomas Jr. So let's talk Trevor Lawrence a little bit, get your opinions, and then we'll bring in the trades.
Yeah, so this is my don't be a slave to recency bias take, because you go back 1 year, and Trevor Lawrence was right there with Justin Herbert, Burrow in that kind of tier 2 group right after the elite quarterback tier. Honestly, last year, Trevor Lawrence was probably going ahead of Lamar Jackson in most leagues because people were afraid of Lamar Jackson coming off back-to-back injury-plagued seasons. So, Trevor Lawrence was like QB8, QB9, something like that. And now he's fallen down to outside QB1 range. He's, QB 13, 14, 15, however you want to look at it. So if you have the kind of belief that he can get back to what he was a year ago, and last year was a bit of a disappointment relative to his draft cost, but it still wasn't terrible. He was obviously injured. He was compromised the last 4, 5, 6 games of the year. And honestly, the offense last year ran through Travis Etienne. I personally, obviously, have gone out on the limb that I don't expect the same kind of season from Etienne, especially the way the offense has been built. With bringing in a Gabe Davis, bringing in a Brian Thomas Jr., who I expect to be really good. And
they're going to open up that offense, or they're going to try to anyway.
And I think Brian Thomas Jr. is going to lead that team in touchdowns, which means that Trevor Lawrence is going to have more touchdown passes. I think that 30 touchdown season upside is still there. So, I'm just kind of leveraging that cost difference between where he was last year and where he is currently, because I think he can get back to where he was last year.
I currently have Trevor Lawrence projected for 24 touchdowns. It's an improvement over last year. I think he could very easily get more than that. I mean, we've seen big touchdown seasons from Gabe Davis. Obviously, we saw the upside that Brian Thomas Jr. offers going back to his LSU season last year. Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram being that safety blanket. Travis Etienne scores a lot of rushing touchdowns, and he scored a lot of touchdowns in college. So I think his ability to get it in the end zone, unless they're whipping that football 650 times, will definitely, maybe limit that 30 touchdown upside. I think maybe we might be looking at more of like a 27, 28 range, which I don't think, it's not anything to slouch at. I mean, that's obviously a really good
that's
season.
still a back end QB1.
Yeah, correct. I will say the one thing that worries me is Doug Peterson talking about Gabe Davis as a middle of the field option. I'm like, why are we trying to fit square pegs in round holes here? Let this man do what he does best. Stretch a defense and drop the football. Okay. He's not moving the chains. I'm sorry. Just not.
You already have Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk to run the middle of the field.
And even, ETN too. And Joe chimes in like, ETN going to get a lot of dump offs this year. And you know what?
Yep.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that because he does great things with it. And he had 70 targets last year. Like, utilize him. So, yeah, I'm very interested here. But I want to bring up this question from Carrington before we get into the trades. What are you willing to trade for to get Brian Thomas Jr.? Now, Carrington, I want to throw in an asterisk here. Joel is high. He is very high on Brian Thomas Jr. and maybe not other people are. So I want to pump that brake a little bit, and then take what Joel says with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I am one of the foremost Brian Thomas Jr. supporters north of Louisiana. Let's just say that. I think he's going to be really good. I think he's going to be, like I said, I think he's going to be a red zone weapon, and I think he's going to lead this team in touchdowns. I think having Gabe Davis kind of opens things up for him more than it opens things up for the other guys, but it opens things up for him as well. He can just do more things than Gabe Davis can. He's just a more flexible. They're stylistically similar.
70% of his passes last year, too.
Yeah, they're stylistically similar, but he's just a much more advanced player than
one has hands, the other has bricks. Go ahead.
Or will ever be. So, yeah, I'm very high on Brian Thomas Jr. I think I had him, I had him of the rookie class, like right there with Brock Bowers,
3, wasn't he?
4 after Odunze, but yeah,
that's right. Okay,
but I had him closer to that top tier than most people did. So, in a tight end premium, I would have taken Bowers over Thomas, but otherwise, I think they were essentially equal. So I had him higher than where he goes in most rookie drafts. So yeah, I'm very high on him. If you had to pay, I'm trading any 25 first to get him easily, no question. I would even probably throw a little bit on there because I expect him to be a startable receiver this year. So yeah, like you said, I'm probably the wrong person to ask because I'm higher on him than market, definitely.
Well, I mean, and I don't think that's an unfair trade because, again, he was likely a 2024 first-round pick, right? Like, yeah, for sure. I don't really – I mean, depending on the league size and the settings and all that stuff, he was probably a back-end first-round pick, maybe a high second, right? So what I would do is take basically the value in what he was drafted at, apply that to 2025, and then maybe throw on like a dart throw piece to see what gets done and then start the negotiations there. I think that's the easiest way to start that. And then use what you said, Joel, is kind of that, like, here's the high mark. This is how high I'm willing to go. So I can test the waters and see how the Brian Thomas Jr. manager values Brian Thomas Jr.
The other thing I'm going to do is if I'm like a non-contending team, I'm going to try and move like a Debo or a Steph Diggs and get a Brian Thomas Jr. and something else in return. So, if I've got these Alvin Kamara, if I've got these aging assets on my team that I want to get off and kind of start a rebuild, I would easily move those guys and try and get Brian Thomas Jr. and something else.
Yeah, I think that's 100% fair. This is also a really good plug. If you want to learn more about trades, go to dynastynerds.com and use their trade calculator, upload all your league stuff. Carrington, dynastynerds.com, use promo code ClubFantasy, save 15%. You got it, buddy. All right, and one last question because we were just talking about the Bears. How productive do we think that Keenan Allen will be this year? I know, Joel, you're extremely high on Rome Odunze. You think he's the best wide receiver in that room. Obviously, Keenan Allen coming off of a career season. Did and injured also, by the way, and is 32 years old. So what are we looking at in terms of prospects for Keenan Allen this year?
Yeah, as I like to say, Keenan Allen is the oldest fantasy relevant non-quarterback who's not dating Taylor Swift in the league. So, and I do like Rome Odunze quite a bit. Obviously, I like DJ Moore quite a bit. I don't think he kind of meshes well with what Caleb Williams does well. So yeah, I have my concern. I'm not super concerned about this. He weighs 230 pounds. Like, this is what the preseason is for. These guys, he's a veteran. He's been around forever. He knows how to get himself in shape by day one. So I'm not worried about that. I just worry about his fit in the offense. And, we saw Shane Waldron just not use JSN in the slot well last year at all. I mean, he's
the difference is JSN's not. I don't know.
Right, but like his ADOT for the first half of the year was like 4. It was terrible. So I just don't know how well the kind of slot receiver role works in a Shane Waldron offense. So I'm lower on Keenan than I think the community is. I don't think he's gonna be terrible by any means, but there's a lot of questions here: the age, the injury history, and how well he fits in the offense.
I question how well Shane Waldron fits in this offense, truthfully, because I don't see Caleb Williams being the type of quarterback that can truly run Shane Waldron's offense. Just my personal opinion. Like, he's a guy that's going to go off script. He's going to make plays. He's going to extend plays. And to me, that's where Keenan Allen fits in, because he knows how to find the soft spots in the zone, right? That's what's going to open things up for Caleb Williams, in my opinion. So I agree with everything you're saying. I just think there's more to the picture when you're talking Keenan Allen, right? Yep. Like, I think he still has a great opportunity to get 1,000 yards. I don't think we're going to see a 100-catch season. It's just, I don't know at that point, but I think that he's still the wide receiver 2 in that offense. But again, if we're talking, hey, he's going to miss 8 games, obviously that's a completely different story. So, I mean, we've seen in the past Keenan Allen get hurt, but that was a long, long, long time ago. He's been a relatively healthy player over the last half decade or so, last year notwithstanding. But again, he's also 32 years old now. There's a lot of uncertainty when it comes to health and longevity with that. So, and Carrington, I'll give you another shout out. Hey, already subscribed. See, that's how we do things here at Club Fantasy. Help us help you, man. There you go. All right. The trades. Trevor Lawrence trades. A little bit of a tangent there. Okay. Trevor Lawrence, Kyle Pitts, 301 that turned into Jalen Wright, and the 401, which became Luke McCaffrey. For Jamar Chase, Tucker Kraft. 12-team Superflex start 10 non-tight end premium. So, yeah, that's a lot to give up for Jamar Chase, kind of, sort of, when you're talking Superflex. Walk us through this, because I'm kind of leaning the Chase side here, not going to lie.
Yeah, and I said in the article, this one is not for the faint of heart, right? And this is me putting my money where my mouth is. You got to have some cojones to pull this off. Yeah, but again, my take on Trevor Lawrence is that I believe he can get back to the value he had last year. And if he does, then he is about equal to Chase. Like, if he's the QB8, then that's, about the equivalent of the wide receiver 1 in a Superflex.
I think that's fair.
So if that happens, then I got free Kyle Pitts. And yes, it's non-tight end premium, but I also had absolute trash at tight end. I think Tucker Kraft was probably my best tight end.
Look, you could still have potentially trash at tight end.
That's fair. That's fair. But yeah, here
we'll know for sure after this year.
100%. So yeah, this trade could absolutely go absolutely horribly for me, but it could also be a huge win. So it's a big swing. But, I'm putting my money where my mouth is.
That's how you win a dynasty, though. You got to take big swings.
You got to take big swings. And I think Jalen Wright could be a valuable piece. And I made this trade well before the draft. So this trade was made early March. So this trade probably happened before the Cousins deal, before the Cousins free agent signing. So, yeah, it was a big swing, but it's, again, this is, I'm believing in my own takes here, so.
All right. And I think this is another instance of you giving up an elite asset to get T-Law. Trevor Lawrence and Garrett Wilson for CJ Stroud. 12-team Superflex start 9. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this is you taking advantage of the peak CJ Stroud value tearing down to a quarterback you believe in and getting an elite wide receiver asset for Mr. Zero RB. How'd I do?
Yep, exactly right.
Damn,
and especially
good. It's almost like we work together.
Especially in a start 9 where, Garrett Wilson's a very valuable asset. Again, to be honest, I loaded a quarterback in this league. I have Josh Allen. I have Jordan Love. CJ Stroud is like my second or third quarterback. So I can afford to make this deal. I tried. This actually got shot down just late last night, so it didn't happen, unfortunately. But yeah, I still think this is a fair deal. If you can find someone who is higher on Stroud than market, or someone who believed that CJ Stroud was QB1 when they signed Steph Diggs, if you go back to that, and if you think someone is doesn't like Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence I think was kind of right there as their best quarterback on this team, so it's a team that could have used an elite quarterback option. So yeah, I don't think it's too, and had a bunch of really good receivers. So Garrett Wilson wasn't leaving them destitute. So I think this is a fair deal, but it didn't work out.
Yeah, I have one Dynasty league. It's a 10-team Superflex, half PPR, where I was bad for a lot of years, ended up with Trevor Lawrence as my 101 in a rookie draft, had Kyler Murray for a little bit, took a bit of a downgrade from Kyler to Brock Purdy, but I got a first-round pick as the plus there, so I was like, all right, this feels okay.
Sure.
So my starting quarterbacks in this league are Brock Purdy and Trevor Lawrence. And it kind of feels like I have two of the same guy. Like I always like to try to diversify a little bit when it comes to that. Yep. But I think, Purdy's already shown he has that 30 passing touchdown upside. You lose a lot of the rushing, sure. But I think, teaming him with Trevor Lawrence makes a lot of sense. I've also had teams with CJ Stroud where I'm like, hey, I want to take advantage of this value. Trying to tear down and, get some of these Burrows. I know a lot of people were out on Jalen Hurts, so I was really trying to push for Jalen. I could not get that +1 for CJ Stroud at all, and it was really kind of disappointing because when you hear the echo chamber, oh, sell CJ Stroud, sell Stroud, sell Stroud. It's like, what leagues are you in? Because I can't fucking sell Stroud.
That's very league specific. Yeah, I was able to make some of those trades. I got Dak in a high first for Stroud. I got Jordan Love in a high first. So yeah, I was able to make some of those trades, but yeah, it's very league specific. You have to have a league that values Stroud at that elite level.
So I want to bring up, kind of going back to the last trade, Gator brings this up. So does the wrist injury for Burrow play any factor when you're valuing Jamar Chase going forward?
Not for me. We've heard that it's an injury that's more likely to kind of reoccur, but shouldn't affect him in any way. So yeah, I mean, any quarterback can get, can ding a wrist or a thumb on any given throws. A quarter or a lineman gets pushed back and they follow through and hit their thumb or something like that. That can happen to literally any quarterback. That's probably the most common quarterback injury. So I'm not going to let it affect my perception of Burrow.
Okay, fair enough. And I think, as who brings up, I mean, it is no different when you're talking about Anthony Richardson as well. I mean, once those guys have the one injury, it sticks to it. I get that. And then I want to bring up this last one before we get to the last quarterback here. Carrington wants to know, when are you guys doing a Dynasty Listener League?
I'm open to it.
Interesting. So I do know that in our Club Fantasy mock draft chat on Sleeper, we did start a Dynasty Listener League. I believe it was over the summer. I'm sure we can probably get another one going. Not going to lie. And Carrington, shoot me a DM because we probably got to add you to that chat. I don't know if you're in that one. So
I'll say I've only done, I think I've been really disciplined and only done one startup this year.
You're itching, aren't you?
I would be fine making.
Y'all got another one of them Dynasty startups.
I had to work hard. It was not easy.
All right, last quarterback, and then we'll wrap things up. Tua Tagovailoa, another guy coming off a recent extension. Lot of dynasty takes on Tua. There are plenty of people that think that he's just not the guy, that Miami could do better, and then Miami says, "Well, I think we're okay with him." And then we paid him $50 million a year for the next 4 years. So I think he fits into what what the Dolphins want to do. He's accurate. He gets the ball out. Interception just kind of come with the timing routes. It is what it is. There's a lot to like. Probably not a lot not to like. So, all right, talk about Tua, Joel. How are we feeling here?
So a couple things. One is I'm not comparing him to Patrick Mahomes, but we valued Patrick Mahomes for so long because he's the quarterback of the best offense in the league. Right now, Tua is the quarterback of the best offense in the league. Now, again, he's not Patrick Mahomes. And Patrick Mahomes is a big reason that Kansas City is the best offense or has been the best offense in the league. But right now that's Tua. And I think the fantasy market just doesn't like him because he doesn't run. And he's not gonna, and that's fine. But neither does Dak Prescott anymore. Neither does CJ Stroud. Jordan Love's not gonna run a ton. Joe Burrow doesn't run a ton. Yep. So yeah, what's the difference? What's the difference between Tua and these guys? The Dolphins believe in him. He is the quarterback of the best offense in the league last year. I don't understand why he's as kind of dumped upon as he is.
He's also never thrown for 30 touchdowns in a season.
I push back on that. Like he had 29 last year, and they had 27.
Still not 30, Joel.
It's not 30. But
I remind you what somebody that I work with told me. I was like, you know what? I haven't been under 200 pounds probably since high school. And they said, you know what? You're still not. And I said, fuck you. So it's the same concept.
They did have 30 touchdowns passing as a team last year. Mike White had one in garbage time. So that's certainly within, again, if that rushing touchdown, 27 is more than Carolina had total. It's more than the Giants had total. If that regresses just a little bit, then Tua is going to be easily over 30. So that number does not bother me.
Yeah, and I feel like touchdowns across the league, well, I don't feel like statistically, they have been down from the norm the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And so if there's any level of regression or positive regression back to the mean, we're going to see more offensive touchdowns here.
And I think one thing that's really kind of underreported or under talked about is like with this what's the tackle that they outlawed? I'm gapping. It's not horse collar, but the drag down tackle or whatever.
Yeah, the hip drop.
Hip drop, yeah. Because they outlawed that, and the biggest problem with that is going to be the penalties, right? They're going to call it early, and it's going to lead to a lot of 15-yard penalties. That's big for offenses that never got called last year. So I think the offensive environment as a whole is going to go up this year.
Okay. All right. Let's talk to a trade. And speaking of another quarterback that I feel like his value has diminished quite a bit, Tua and Michael Penix Jr. for Justin Herbert. 14-team Superflex start 10. So I'm guessing you're on the Tua side on this. And I find this really interesting, especially because it's a 14-team league and it's Superflex, which means that really only 4 teams are going to have a third starting quarterback. And you're getting somebody that's basically sitting and waiting in the wings here. And I think that is the plus one of plus ones at that point to get for Justin Herbert.
Yeah, and I also have Cousins in the league, so it would be very nice to have Penix as a backup. But also, have you heard this Penix stuff? I don't know. It's like he didn't dress for their game, and they don't expect him to dress for their next preseason game in week 3, and it's not injury related. That's really weird. So this trade,
I've heard a couple of theories on this, and the one that I like the most is that they want to be cautious with Kirk Cousins coming back from that Achilles, and that they're actually setting up Penix to start week 1 and potentially a couple more weeks to allow Cousins to get ready. Again, it's just a theory I've heard. I don't have any level of knowledge or inside report to that. But to me, I think that it makes sense if you're not going to play Penix, because in my opinion, all you should be doing is playing Penix because you already know who Kirk Cousins is. So if you're not playing Penix, there's a legitimate reason why. And I don't necessarily think it's because he sucks and we fucked up on our 8th overall pick. You know what I mean?
Right. Also, it's like the camp reports have been really good. They've been very promising. So, yeah, I don't think there's any world in which it's because he sucks. Now, did he violate some team rule or something like that? Is he in the doghouse with the coaches? That would be bad.
Extreme.
Yeah.
That feels extreme, especially considering
the bench him for 2 games would be very weird. So, yeah, maybe that's the case. I guess that makes some sense. But, yeah. But anyway, this trade was sent out before I'd heard anything about that. So, again, I just trying to get that extra.
Was it offered or accepted?
I offered it. It was politely declined. They said they like Tua over Justin Herbert as well, which I don't think is consensus, but this was a shot worth shooting.
Okay. That's fair. So real quick before we end, thoughts on Justin Herbert and his perceived dynasty value? Because I got to know.
I'm buying wherever I can. If the Justin Herbert manager is down on him, I think his long-term outlook is very good, even though I think he'll be depressed this year, but I think his long-term outlook is just as good as it had been before. Like, I think they're going to invest heavily in wide receiver next year, and I think they're going to be in position to, because I think they're going to be terrible and they're going to have a top 5 pick next year.
I like it. And if you want more thoughts on Justin Herbert, make sure you are subscribed to the Club Fantasy FFL YouTube channel, because our partner Dynasty show, Trade Blocked, with Joel, Hoove, and Dusty, every Thursday night at 8 o'clock, recently just did a Trade Talk episode on Justin Herbert. So get all the info you need right there. See, everything covered right here. Club Fantasy FFL. Hit that subscribe. And like the video, because we greatly appreciate everything that helps us continue to grow. We just hit 1,160 subscribers, give or take.
Nice.
Yeah, 1,160 we're at. So, yeah, slowly creeping on up. Let's see if we can get to 1,200 before the start of the season.
Love it.
I think we can do it because we're dropping show after show after show after show here these days. Tomorrow night, we have Mocking with the Stars with Gator J, Chris Battistow. We have on Tuesday nights Masterclass, our high-stakes best ball show. Wednesday, obviously, we have the flagship, but more importantly, we have Women of Fantasy Football Week 3 with special guests Stacey Perez and Stephanie Stradley. Rankings show for NPI, no pun intended, will be at 9 o'clock. We'll be talking wide receivers. Thursday night, as mentioned, Trade Blocked with Joel, Hoove, and Dusty at 8 o'clock. And then we have Mock Girl Summer, our Women of Fantasy mock draft show with Wendy Early and Julia Papworth. Friday nights, Maga Like a Tots with Ryan. Actually, no Ryan this week, but Austin will be hosting. And then, come back next Sunday for Dynasty After Party, 11 a.m. We'll be talking running backs next week. So trade targets there. So I'm sure we'll have some good buy low options there.
Yeah, you said Lindsey.
Really, just any running back, I think, is a buy low option at this point, truthfully. But
yeah, I just want to shout out the Mock Girl Summer Show having Lindsey freaking Rhodes on Thursday. That was awesome.
And I got to host that one. It was a little weird, but
for sure.
I love Lindsey Rhodes. She's so much fun.
Yeah,
very animated. Her and Julia, they carried that show, so making me look good. As mentioned throughout this show, our partnership with Dynasty Nerds. You head over to dynastynerds.com, use promo code Club Fantasy, save yourself 15%. Get access to their All-22 film room, Dynasty GM tool, their trade calculator, whole 9 yards. So many great tools over at Dynasty Nerds, and super stoked to be partnering with them to offer you guys this deal. And as mentioned earlier as well, TrophySmack.com/WOFF. That's WOFF. Head over to Trophy Smack. Any commissions that we earn in the month of August is going to go towards our WOFF Galvanized Scholarship Fund. So your belts, your trophies, your rings, your wall smack, your draft boards. It's a big draft season, obviously, for Redraft. Get in on all of that. So many great things. And we have the Ladies League page that was recently set up as part of this partnership that WOFF and Trophy Smack have put together. The Rose Gold Championship belt, which, hey, nice, pretty. You can fully customize it, different bands, whole 9 yards. It's really, really, really dope. And the more stuff you buy through this, the more ladies options that we can offer, which that's the ultimate goal here, is get more women involved in all this stuff. So And our WAF raffles this week: signed Amon St. Brown, signed Sam Laporta Lions jerseys, $5 per ticket, womenoffantasyfootball.com. Easy access to get yourself those tickets. You can follow Joel at the Joel Wirth. You can follow myself at the One Hudsonian. And of course, our missing host, Michael Sicoli. We love you, buddy. Hope everything's going well. At Michael__Sicoli. You can follow Club Fantasy all across all of the socials at Club Fantasy FFL. And of course, Women of Fantasy Football on Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram at women_FF. So much great stuff. Womenoffantasyfootball.com, clubfantasyffl.com. Written articles coming out. Getting into the season, we're going to have all kinds of stuff hitting the website as well as the YouTube page. We're finalizing the lineup for the season. Super excited because we're going to have a lot of shows coming at you again for the 2024 season. Again, for Joel, for myself. Stick around, hit that subscribe. I know there's a saying or something that Sicoli does, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. So I'm just going to bid everybody adieu. Thank you for tuning in and watching. Remember, hit that like, hit that subscribe here at Club Fantasy FFL, as well as the Women of Fantasy Football channel at women_FF. We will see everybody next week. Peace out, y'all.